Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Guy Gordon, and I'm the Executive Director of the Institute for Citizen-Centered Service. And I'd like to welcome all of the participants to today's webinar. I'm very pleased that all of you and all of the sites participating from across the country have taken the time to sit in another one of a series of webinars that the Institute for Citizen-Centered Service presents on a regular basis to the service delivery community across the country. I'm very pleased that we are able to do this work in collaboration with the Service Mapping Subcommittee of the Joint Councils, that is the Public Sector CIO Council and the Public Sector Service Delivery Council. The Service Mapping Subcommittee, as many of you know, has been very active in leveraging webinar technology to present a wide assortment of very interesting and very well attended webinars to the service delivery community from across the country. And to that point, I would just like to make people aware that all of the webinars that the ICCS puts on are recorded and are made available on the ICCS website. So those of you who wanted to have a look to see the kinds of things that have been presented in the last year or so can have a look under the on the ICCS website under the video gallery, and you'll see a number of those webinars there. I'd like to thank our presenter today, Michal Zhang, who is the manager of the Common Measurements Tool, for putting together today's presentation. And I'd like to say a few things on behalf of the ICCS. I'd like to make 3 points on behalf of the ICCS and by means of an introduction, such that all of the participants, I think, will be on the same page in terms of understanding why we're presenting this material and why the Common Measurements Tool is such an important instrument and being used not only in Canada but around the world in the public sector. The first of these points is, as you will see, the Common Measurements Tool really is a very dynamic tool. And it is and has been evolving and changing since 1998, and we're very pleased that we're now in a position to come forward and present the most recent iteration, the Enhanced Common Measurement Tool. We have been working on the redevelopment of this tool for some time, and have been very pleased to work with various stakeholders and users of the CMT to help refine and update the CMT to increase its relevance. In particular, we believe that the CMT will assist users with adapting to the evolving service environment by offering a more sophisticated approach to capturing the multi-channel experience, and by introducing content relevant to the emerging channels such as social networking. The second point I would like to make about the Common Measurements Tool is that it's really part of a broader suite of products and services offered by the ICCS. Both the Enhanced CMT that you'll be hearing about today and the Municipal CMT that is in its full-scale development are aligned with the Citizens First and Taking Care of Business research. In fact, Michal will be making direct references to the results of Citizens First 6 today. So I think it's really worth noting for those of you who are not aware that we've just completed Citizens First 6, and the national and the jurisdictions that have participated in the Citizens First 6 have all received their various jurisdictional reports, and that the national report is going to be released in the next few days. So we're very excited about that, and I look forward to a forthcoming special webinar on that topic. So look for that invitation in the near future. The third point I'd like to make before I turn it over to Michal is that the CMT plays a very important role in supporting the emerging service that we've been offering in specifically that of benchmarking. And you'll see that, as you are aware, in many jurisdictions, benchmarking is taking on an ever important role as organizations try to gain deeper insight into their own level of organizational performance and look to facilitate and start critical conversations related to how their organization can aim at improving their service delivery. And the common measurement tool, by providing a common framework for measurement, has been and is increasingly being used in more sophisticated ways to provide that type of benchmarking service. And we're very keen to showcase some of the developments that have been occurring in that particular space as well. So I know Michal has prepared a great presentation for you. I'd like to let you know that we facilitate a Q&A session with each webinar, and the way that is facilitated is for individuals to use the chat box, and we'll collect those questions and we'll pass those on to Michal at the end of the session. So with that being said, I'm now very pleased to turn it over to Michal Jean to make the presentation. Over to you, Michal.
Thank you, Guy, and welcome everybody, and thank you for joining us. The focus of today's presentation, as Guy just mentioned, will be the recent developments relating to the Common Measurements Tool, or the CMT, including the upcoming release of the enhanced version of the instrument, the development of the municipal CMT, and the recent improvements to our benchmarking service. However, first, having in mind those of you who may be less familiar with the ICCS, let me begin by providing a bit of an overview of the Institute. So who are we? We are a collaborative venture that engages all orders of government across Canada and promotes and supports improved service delivery by listening to and acting on the voice of the citizen. What do? We manage intergovernmental research agendas such as Citizens First, the initiative that Guy just mentioned, and taking care of business. We gather, preserve, and disseminate knowledge and innovative practices. We build capacity, and we provide universally applicable tools and learning content such as the Common Measurements Tool and the Certified Service Manager program. Now, I know that many of you have been familiar with the CMT for some time, but I also know that there are many participants today whose knowledge of the instrument might be fairly limited. That's why I'd like to start by providing a bit of an overview of what the CMT is. The CMT is a survey design instrument, first developed in 1998. It is designed to collect customer satisfaction data in the public sector context and to facilitate benchmarking. The CMT is used to collect feedback relating to a broad range of service dimensions, including access, timeliness, staff performance, and channel experience. The CMT is designed for and has been used in both external and internal client surveys by all levels of government. And on a side note, I can say that approximately 20% of data in the ICCS benchmarking database comes from internal client surveys. The CMT questions address the full range of service delivery channels, including telephone, in-person, web, mail, email, kiosk. In addition, the questions are designed for data collection across the same spectrum of channels. Since it was first launched in 1998, the CMT has been used by all levels of government in Canada and also in several other jurisdictions around the world. So what does the instrument consist of? The two core documents are the CMT question bank and the CMT user manual. The CMT question bank contains a set of core questions based on the key drivers of satisfaction identified by citizens first and taking care of business research, as well as approximately 150 additional questions which can be used to create customized surveys that meet organizations' specific needs. The CMT user manual is a companion document to the question bank, and it offers step-by-step guidance for new users and additional analytical options for those who are more advanced. So, what have we been doing recently? We've updated the CMT and we'll be launching the revised version called the Enhanced CMT early next year. We have introduced significant changes to our benchmarking service, and we are now developing a version of the CMT designed specifically for municipal governments. It will be called Municipal CMT, and I should also note that this is a joint project of the ICCS and OMBI, the Ontario Municipal Benchmarking Initiative. So I will now discuss these developments in greater detail. The Enhanced CMT. The Enhanced CMT is scheduled for full launch in early 2013. This is going to be the second major update of the CMT. When the CMT was first created, the tool was meant to undergo regular review and revision cycles in order to ensure that its methodology was aligned with the user needs and industry standards. For this reason, we commissioned Professor Ed Bruning from the University of Manitoba to undertake a review of the tool and formulate recommendations for improvement. As part of the review, Professor Bruning conducted interviews with a host of CMT users, and the user feedback has been incorporated into the final report, giving us a clear sense about the direction which we needed to take with the CMT. So the Enhanced CMT is based on those recommendations and the feedback received as part of the review. In addition, during the update process, the ICCS consulted several jurisdictions in Canada and internationally, and has used this additional input to improve the quality and functionality of the instrument, aligning it more closely with user needs. It should be emphasized at this stage that the Enhanced CMT methodology is consistent with the previous versions of the tool, and that the changes introduced will not have a significant impact on tracking. So if you've been using the CMT, you will still be able to do longitudinal studies and so on. And you should be able to transition to using the enhanced version without encountering any major problems. But if you do have questions or concerns in this respect, feel free to contact us directly. So, what are some of the changes that we're introducing? First, we've developed a new visual identity for the instrument, and you can see the new cover of the question bank on your screen. We've updated the wording of some of the questions, including some of the core questions. For instance, the issue of double-barreled questions has been addressed. To give you an example, one of the more popular CMT questions in the past had been staff were knowledgeable and competent. However, it was found that asking about both knowledge and competence as part of the same question can be problematic, because those two could be seen as distinct attributes. Consequently, the Enhanced CMT now has two different questions: staff were knowledgeable and staff were competent. Two questions addressing those specific drivers. This division should also greatly increase the actionability of the results based on these questions. The response scales have been standardized throughout the questionnaire to facilitate consistency and ease of use. All satisfaction scales have been converted to agreement scales. So, for instance, the timeliness question was previously worded as overall, how satisfied were you with the amount of time it took to get the service? And now it is worded as, overall, I was satisfied with the amount of time it took to get the service. How much do you agree with the statement? The layout has also been changed. While the overall division into sections of the question bank is still pretty much the same, and the question bank is still divided into two parts, one formatted for verbal delivery and the other formatted for written or online delivery, we've improved the way questions and instructions are presented in each section. This should allow for greater clarity and ease of use. The new CMT also introduces a more effective approach to capturing channel-specific issues and multi-channel experience. Where previously the question bank had a single access and facilities section, it now has two. One is designed for those users who want to obtain feedback relating to a single method of contact, such as telephone, internet, or counter services. The other section provides a technique for investigating multiple contact services. The new instrument also contains a set of guidelines for classifying the given service as relational or transactional, external or internal, regulatory or voluntary. This classification is designed to assist users with selecting the appropriate questions. The instrument has been aligned more closely with other ICCS research. For instance, the wording of several CMT questions has been changed based on Citizens First and Taking Care of Business questionnaires. Questions relating to the emerging channels of service delivery, such as social networking, have been introduced. Users are now able to ask their customers about their use of Facebook or Twitter to access services. The content of the user manual, including sample questionnaires, has been aligned with the revised version of the question bank as well. The user manual now has much more comprehensive step-by-step methodological guidance for beginner to intermediate users. In order to better accommodate new users, the manual contains a section listing some preliminary considerations that users need to be aware of before undertaking CMT research. Some of these considerations are: what are my research objectives? What are my information needs? Is tracking a key objective for me? What are my analytical needs? What analyses do I need to run to answer my research objectives? For advanced users, a section is included which discusses such issues as: should overall satisfaction be represented by a single item measure or a multi-item measure? Or how do I report the results of the driver analysis? Increased emphasis has been placed on the role of the ICCS as an important resource for all CMT users. Throughout the documents, CMT documents, users are encouraged to contact the ICCS for further guidance and to supplement the information contained in the CMT documents. As an example of a new feature meant to increase usability of the CMT, the new user manual now includes the list of the most frequently used CMT questions. This is meant to allow users to select such questions that would allow them to benchmark effectively with other organizations. That is, if they select popular, frequently used questions, they will be more likely to have robust benchmarking groups to compare their scores against. Now, even though we've made some changes, the CMT's connection with the ICCS research will remain as strong as ever. Just as it was with the previous version of the CMT, the enhanced CMT is founded on empirical knowledge based on over a decade's worth of ICCS research, which includes Citizens First and Taking Care of Business. Just as was the case with the previous version of the CMT, the enhanced CMT will also feature a set of core questions based on the Citizens First drivers, whose use is particularly recommended for two reasons. They are based on the leading research I just mentioned, and they've been validated by hundreds of organizations from all levels of government and from a broad range of service areas. The drivers on which the core questions are based have been shown to be stable over the successive iterations of Citizens First and account for nearly 80% of all variance in satisfaction ratings. On your screen, you can see the top drivers identified by Citizens First 6, the most recent study completed by the ICCS. If you look at the bar graph, you will see that timeliness is the top driver, as it has been through all iterations. And it is followed by access, outcome, and staff performance questions. With the exception of two Citizens First specific questions, questions number 4 and 5, these are all CMT questions, and these are all core CMT questions. Okay, so what are the main advantages of using the CMT? The CMT is customizable, highly customizable. You can use the tool to build a new survey from scratch, or you can use CMT questions to supplement an already existing survey. While we make some recommendations regarding how the CMT should be used, for instance, we recommend using core questions, and while we provide sample CMT questionnaires as part of the CMT user manual, there is really no prescribed layout or format in which the CMT questions must be used. They can be implemented via any existing channel, and even the wording of questions can be adjusted slightly to include the name of the organization and of the service. The CMT is also cost-effective. The value of the insights provided by the CMT research can greatly outweigh any costs associated with its implementation. Besides, the tool can be implemented with very little additional resources. While we recommend that organizations obtain outside assistance with surveying the implementation, the reality is that some units can't afford the services of a consultant and need to rely on their internal resources. The CMT is designed to be sufficiently accessible and easy to use to be of value to those organizations as well. Another benefit of using the CMT is that it can be used effectively alongside other measurement and strategic planning solutions. A good example of this approach is DRCMP, who has been using the tool as part of a broader strategy involving the use of management instruments such as Balanced Scorecard and DRCMP Dashboard. By employing all these tools together, the agency has the ability to make strategic decisions using results-based intelligence. The CMT can also identify real service transformation opportunities by identifying drivers of satisfaction specific to the given service area. By doing so, it enables service managers and other decision makers to address specific issues with service delivery. In the case study at the end of this presentation, you will see what this looks like in practice. The CMT is used primarily at the program level. However, it can also be applied in the broader context. For instance, many municipalities use CMT questions both in citywide surveys as well as in surveys focusing on service delivery by a specific department. The CMT can be used to collect data relating to client expectations, allowing decision makers to set service goals that are aligned with what their clients would like to see. The CMT can be used to collect both stated importance and derived importance data relating to each service attribute. This enables CMT users to identify service gaps and consequently address those areas that are in need of improvement. And I will show you a graph relating to this at the end of this presentation. At this point, I should also mention that the new CMT will continue to feature both agreement and importance response scales. As I mentioned a few slides back, the new CMT also provides a highly effective way of capturing client feedback relating to both single and multiple channel use. Also, CMT users can gain access to methodological guidance and support provided by the ACCS. For instance, we are always available to review our clients' questionnaires and check if they're compatible with the CMT. This is particularly important to those users who intend to use our benchmarking service. Last but not least, CMT users become part of the broader community of practice and through ICCS can gain access to other users and share insights with them. We find that it is increasingly important for organizations to learn from best practice examples, and we're happy to be able to facilitate such exchange of information. Now, benchmarking is one of the key benefits available to CMT users. Because the CMT offers a set of common questions that can be used across jurisdictions and organizations, the jurisdictions and organizations can use it to compare their client satisfaction results to each other. To facilitate this, the ICCS has created a central database for storing CMT data, and for nearly a decade, we've been providing our clients with CMT benchmarking reports in which the requesting unit scores are compared to those of peer organizations. It should be added that the process is entirely anonymous. We don't include organizations' names in our reports. Instead, we provide a basic profile of each benchmarking group, including such information as the level of government, sector, client type, industry, and so on. Each such report contains a question-by-question analysis, and for each question, there are typically up to 3 benchmarking groups based on criteria corresponding to the organization and service profiles of the requesting unit. So, for instance, if we receive data from a municipal police service, we might create benchmarking groups based on an overall, municipal, and police lenses. In the first one, we would include all units in our database. In the second, we would have only municipal organizations. And in the third, we'd group just police services. On your screen, you can see which levels of government are represented. So, in fact, these are all 3 levels. Almost half of all data, consisting of over 400 survey units, comes from municipalities, and 1/4 each from federal and provincial governments. So over the past few months, we've introduced some important improvements to the way we report the benchmarking results. As many of you know, in the past we provided the highest and lowest scores for each benchmarking group, along with the overall average and the requesting unit score. While such data was still considered useful, it was thought that relying on outliers might be insufficient. And so now we've added a graphic that shows all data points for the given benchmarking group. On the screen, you can see an example of this new approach. This comes from an actual report that we produced, and each bar represents a different data point, that is, a score achieved by one of our benchmarking clients. The requesting unit is in blue, and you can clearly see how it is positioned against the rest of units in the group. And the horizontal red line represents the average for the entire group. As you can see, we still highlight the top and bottom scores, but this new way of presenting benchmarking information provides a much fuller picture of how the given unit is performing against its peers. And of course, this graphic is just a small sample of what we provide in each report. Our benchmarking analysis goes far beyond just this type of data. Another important enhancement that has recently been introduced is the increased ability to provide direct service-to-service comparisons. In the past, there was greater emphasis on organization profiles in selecting appropriate benchmarking criteria. Now, we're able to work closely with our clients on selecting such benchmarking criteria that will ensure that the type of data that we provide in the report is aligned with their requirements. In addition to service area specific lenses, we've introduced lenses based on other types of service classification, such as regulatory, relational, indirect, and so on. These enable our clients to see how they're performing against units from other service areas, which might be classified under the umbrella of the same service type. And I will speak more about service types in just a moment. And on your screen, you can see some of the benchmarking lenses that are currently being used, as well as those that are currently under development. Our benchmarking service also helps to identify best practice examples that provide further insights and potentially facilitate learning from top performers. The What Leaders Are Doing bubble that you can see on your screen is just one way of identifying such best practices in our reports. In this case, the three examples relate to the accessibility driver, and each one represents a different level of government. Each example is linked to online content that provides additional information about the specific actions taken by the given organization to improve access to their services. Let me say that while the benchmarking reports are anonymous and we never reveal the identity of any organization without its explicit permission, we have often been approached by our benchmarking clients asking us to contact top performers and ask if their identity could be revealed to them, or even if they could be contacted directly by said clients. In almost all such cases, the answer is yes, and the dialogue that follows proves beneficial to both sides. So this is yet another way of identifying best practices. And this is, of course, aligned with our stated goals of being a repository of best practices, as well as of facilitating communication between CMT users. Now, another major development as far as the CMT is concerned is the Municipal CMT, or the NCMT, which is a joint project with the Ontario Municipal Benchmarking Initiative. The NCMT will be a version of the CMT designed specifically for municipal governments. We are currently in phase 1 of this project, in which we are working with a consultant on developing the NCMT question bank and user manual. Following this, phase 2 will involve working with our partners to further test the instrument and establish an effective NCMT framework for methodological support, training, benchmarking, and so on. The NCMT will be well grounded in the ICCS's research framework. It will be based on the CMT approach and will be aligned with other research initiatives such as Citizens First and Taking Care of Business. In addition, the instrument will be developed with participation from key municipal stakeholders. In fact, it is developed with participation from key municipal stakeholders. From the very start of the project, we've been consulting with municipal service leads and have conducted a series of key informant interviews with them in order to assess the needs and requirements of municipal governments. We were very careful to ensure that the key informant interviewees represented diverse service areas, from libraries to bylaws. in order to ensure, and this was done in order to ensure that the instrument's applicability to a broad range of services is maintained, developed. At the present, we are pre-testing the instrument, and we are working on developing the core documents, that is the DMCMT question bank and user manual. Following this, we will undertake further validation with OMBI and non-OMBI municipalities, both in Canada and internationally. Now let me speak for a moment about what DMCMT will actually look like. It will include core CMT questions, such as you will see in the enhanced CMT, but it will also have a much more extensive section of the so-called municipal key questions. That is, questions linked to service attributes of particular relevance for municipal context, for the municipal context. These will be divided into modules based on different aspects of municipal service delivery, such as infrastructure, problem resolution, outcomes, reputation and image, and so on. And these will form the foundation of the MCMT. The MCMT will also use a service type approach. It will assist users with categorizing their services and selecting questions based on service types that they represent. One categorization that should prove particularly relevant to the municipal context is the one which identifies services on the basis of whether they're high touch, low touch, or no touch. This distinction refers to the degree to which services feature person-to-person contact, with high touch characterized by a high level of person-to-person contact, and so on. The need to introduce this particular distinction between service types came directly from our consultations with municipalities, which were conducted prior to the start of the project. Some services, such as road maintenance or garbage collection, are typically no-touch services or low-touch services, and many of our partners felt that they needed an effective tool to measure satisfaction with these types of services. So the MCMT is meant to fill that void. Just to illustrate the importance of service types when it comes to survey design, I chose to include this slide in today's presentation deck. It actually comes out of Citizens First 6 research, and it speaks to how certain questions are more appropriate to certain service types. And some of you may notice that most of these questions are actually CMT questions as well. A version of this table will be included in the MCMT, and it should provide useful guidance to users with regard to which questions they might need to consider given the service type they represent. Now, what is our role in all of this? What is the ICCS's role in all of this? As the custodian of the CMT, the ICCS is mandated to promote, license, and assist with the use of the instrument across the public sector in Canada and internationally. As a result, we play a role in supporting CMT users, and we do this by providing standards and guidance with survey design, analysis, identifying best practices, and building and nurturing communities of practice. Now, by actively promoting the idea of moving towards a more collaborative knowledge sharing and by building a community of practice for sharing approaches and knowledge, the ICCS is taking steps to add value to the CMT experience of its clients. This growing community includes Canadian and other jurisdictions, such as Australia, New Zealand, and the UAE. And it is our hope that with the launch of the enhanced CMT and the municipal CMT, this community of practice will become an even more vibrant focal point for collaboration. So here's a list of just a few jurisdictions who are using the CMT, both in Canada and elsewhere in the world. As you can see, the list includes a range of jurisdictions from across the globe representing federal, provincial, state, and municipal levels of government. One of the listed organizations is the RCMP, whose use of the CMT I mentioned earlier. The agency has been using the instrument on an annual basis since 2003 to track performance and to set performance goals. And one of the reasons why I like to use this example is that you can actually view the full results of their CMT surveys on their website. So if you go to the RCMP website, you should be able to access that information. Another example that is worth mentioning is New Zealand. We have been working with New Zealand State Services Commission since 2007. And in the course of the last 5 years, they have leveraged the CMT and have incorporated the CMT successfully into their service improvement framework. Prior to the full implementation of the CMT, they conducted a driver analysis and have designed a set of core questions specific to the New Zealand service context. Today, the CMT is being used by almost 38 different national departments and agencies as part of the New Zealanders Experience Research Program. I should note that another component of this program is Kiwi Scout, which is the New Zealand version of the Citizens First. Now, to end this presentation, I would like to use an example of the CMTs used by one of the 38 New Zealand departments and agencies, namely the Ministry of Justice. The table on this slide comes from a report entitled Understanding Our Court Users, which is based on a 2010 study of court users, and which can actually be downloaded from our website. If you go to the CMT section, you will find it under the CMT case studies. As part of the study, court users were interviewed at several court sites to provide feedback on various aspects of frontline service delivery in the New Zealand court system. The survey included both CMT and non-CMT questions, and the use of the former, or the use of the CMT questions, allowed for benchmarking with other government agencies in New Zealand, as well as for comparisons with similar surveys conducted in other jurisdictions. In general, the survey findings indicated that the levels of satisfaction with New Zealand courts were high overall, but they varied by the type of user. The study identified drivers of satisfaction specific to the court system. And if you look at the table on your screen, you will see service attributes on the left and the corresponding driver strengths on the right. Now, please note that 8 out of the 9 strongest drivers are in fact CMT based. This shows that the CMT drivers are particularly powerful. And at number 9, you can see an interesting example of a CMT driver developed specifically for New Zealand. Namely, that driver is the value for tax dollars spent. Now, the study also identified priorities for improvement. The graph on your screen shows all identified drivers, not just the top 15 that you could see on the previous slide. The method used to construct this graph is based on derived importance, that is, correlation of each driver with overall satisfaction. However, a similar matrix, I should note, can be constructed using stated importance based on the third agreement importance questions included in the CMT question bank. This may be a particularly attractive option for less advanced users. While there are advantages and disadvantages to using either derived or stated importance, the CMT can certainly be used to obtain both and generate a similar matrix outlining potential areas for improvement in any organization. So, in this matrix, the attributes in green are both important and highly rated. That's why they don't necessarily require attention from service providers. The attributes in red presents the key area for service improvement, because while those attributes receive low satisfaction scores, they are rated as important. They are really the area where service managers, decision makers should be focusing their efforts on. As far as CMT drivers are concerned, the two areas where there seems to be room for improvement are service better than expected and value for tax dollars spent. So overall, the New Zealand Ministry of Justice example clearly highlights the key advantages of using the CMT. It's customizable. The CMT questions are used alongside non-CMT ones, which are organization-specific. The CMT drivers are particularly powerful because out of the top 9 drivers identified by the study, 8 are CMT-based. And the results of CMT surveys can provide actionable insights by identifying opportunities for service improvement, such as they did in the case of the New Zealand Ministry of Justice study. So this concludes this part of today's webinar. If anyone would like to contact me directly about the CMT and its use, please feel free to send me a message at the email address on your screen. Thank you, and now I look forward to answering any questions that the audience might have.
Okay, I think that you'll now be able to hear me. Can you just confirm? Yes, I am apparently live. So this is the joy of doing these types of presentations from coast to coast. Mihal is in the office in Toronto, and I'm sitting here in the office in Winnipeg. So I can't see the folks at the other end, but I know that they're there. We have so far one question that's come in, and I would really like to remind all of the 49 locations. And we're starting to get questions that are coming in now. So here's the first question to you, Mihal, and it relates to slide 19, and it may be more of a question of Citizens First 6 rather than about the CMT. But I wonder if you could just explain the various categories that are outlined in terms of service types.
Actually, thank you, Guy. Actually, we do have our research project manager with us as well, our colleague Cody Dodd. So maybe I will turn it over to him because he was much closer involved with the CF6 research. So Cody, if you can hear me, perhaps you could answer this particular question.
Great, I'd be happy to. I hope everyone can hear me just fine. So I will move forward and start to answer, but if someone taps on my shoulder lets me know I'm quiet, I will try to become live. So it's a very good question, and I'm glad someone asked it because we are taking extra care and taking a look at this question particularly closely. So the question again was, can we walk through those particular service types, where they come from? And in the context of CF6, they were fairly late in the development of the tool, in that we've always talked about the need for the tool to become stronger in terms of capturing services that aren't so traditionally transactional in nature. That is, a transactional service might be something that's easy to define the beginning and end of that service. It's easy to define when it's been delivered. Some other types of services might be more relational in nature, might be harder to define the beginning and end of that particular type of service. So we've always had this notion that we want to start to better be able to speak to those differences, where there are differences and if there are differences. And so one of our first attempts at that is with CF6, in that we took out of our 90-some services that are listed throughout the survey, we started to bundle them ourselves, and in consultation with a couple of stakeholders, what we think might be a good way to arrange those services. So they're restricted explicitly to responses coming out of Citizens First 6, where we would derive particular groups. But the reason I'm saying this is because since it was a first attempt, This is by no means discrete in that there are a number of attributes that we know we would like to add, and one we've already hinted at actually, which is this notion of high touch, low touch, and no touch service delivery contexts. We didn't really capture that at the time because as we were pulling everything together, we missed that one, but we know it's really important. So as you look at these and you start to think there might be other ones out there, do let us know. And I should say that for those who have an opportunity to get a hold of the CF6 report, for instance, it will be available for purchase in published print in a couple of days, which is great news. And you take a look, there will be definitions provided, these specific services that fall into those categories, and you will likely be one of those organizations that reaches out and says, but from our perspective, this group might need to be a little bit tweaked. This service might not be right here. This one might need to be changed, that sort of thing. And we really look forward to that conversation, moving forward to the next tools, taking care of business for instance, which is right around the corner, because we will be defining and validating these services even further then.
Okay, thank you very much, Cody. I just wanted to highlight for the folks that just to recognize that we are evolving our thinking. We do have the capability, as Cody said, that if you have as you get into this and you would like to do some tweaking, we could work with specific organizations and tweak this analysis with them as they would as necessary. So we can do some subsequent analysis because we do have a listing of the 90 services that cover this range of this type of range of categories, but we can certainly tweak the definitions as organizations see fit. The next question, and I'll turn this over to you, Michal, is with regards to the eCMT, is there a pricing structure envisioned?
The answer is yes. We are currently working on an effective pricing structure for different organizations. It is likely to be based on the size of the organization, so we'll definitely take that into account because we are aware that different jurisdictions, they will have different resources. So this hasn't been finalized yet, and we are still in the process of looking at various options. But yes, there is going to be one. We expect there to be one when we launch the tool in early 2013.
Okay, thank you. Yes, this is another question that we received, and I personally I like where this is coming from, and let me just sort of pose the question to you for the audience. It says the CMT seems to be more survey-based. Is there a section that relates to process measurement KPIs? And maybe I'll just take a crack at this a little bit. I think what's being asked here, and if the person who sent this in wants to follow up with us, we'd love to do that. Is that there certainly is a level of sophistication of benchmarking services that I know some organizations have arrived at, where they actually are benchmarking the process performance that underlines the organizational capability. That's not where we are at the ICCS, but I would say that there are a group of organizations that do that. The connection between what's being presented here today and that question, if I've interpreted it correctly, is along the lines that Michal outlined. What we've seen is that as organizations start to do the CMT, start to recognize who their peers are, start to identify organizations that are either performing above or below them, and start to engage in them, we do see that those conversations do and can end up getting to the point of comparing process capabilities. I do know that is where a number of those conversations have tended to go. So hopefully that answers the question that came in. let's see if we've got another question here as we move along. Here's a question coming from somebody at the OPS. Are the new CMT questions organized by staff contact versus no staff contact? In other words, staff contact would be in person and telephone versus no staff contact, which would be online, mail, etc.
Essentially, yes, there is a section, the access and facility. Well, those questions are divided by various channels, including those involving staff contact and no staff contact in the access and facility sections, where there is emphasis on capturing the actual channel experience. So essentially, yes, there are separate sections listing questions specific to each channel in that section.
So still have a moment here for one more question. I did receive a question about who do we contact for exploring the the CMT if organizations are interested, and that again would be Mihal. Mihal's contact information is contained on the last slide here. So I will follow up directly with the individual who sent this to us privately, and we'll follow up with Mihal's contact information. What I'd like to do is sort of round up the hour and say to the 50 or so folks that participated, I'd like to say thank you so much, and thanks very much to Mihal for organizing this material and presenting it, and I thought in a very clear and coherent way. We even got some feedback from people saying you were very clear, and I like the inclusion examples at the end. So you're getting unsolicited feedback here. But in terms of the broader feedback, please look for a survey that will be coming out in the next few moments or next day or so, and that gives you a chance to give us some very specific feedback in terms of its overall value and things that you'd like to see. So for all of you, thank you so much. That survey has just arrived in your inbox as I spoke. So thanks to the team in Toronto. Thanks for everyone, and I wish you a great day, and we look forward to talking to you more about the Common Measurements Tool and research activities at the ICCS. Thanks again.